Dramatic finish.
The World Poker Tour. The biggest games, the greatest players, and the largest payouts on the planet. The WPT is a series of international high-stakes poker tournaments that can turn amateur players into millionaires and make professionals into superstars. With millions of dollars on the line, it's time for these 6 players to live the dream of fame, fortune, and the one thing money can't buy, a WPT title. Tonight on the World Poker Tour.
From Southern California in the spectacular Commerce Casino, tonight we bring you the final table of the LA Poker Classic. Hi everyone, I'm Mike Sexton along with Vince Van Patten, and welcome to the WPT.
And Mike, of all the stops on the World Poker Tour, the LA Poker Classic is the one stop that year after year is dominated by big poker superstars. I mean, we have had Gus Hansen, we've had the Magician, Antonio Esfandiari, the Grinder, Alan Gehring, and then last season we had the great Phil Ivey. He won this event.
That's right, Vince. In 6 previous seasons, we've only had one amateur breakthrough to take this title. That was Eric Hirschler, but it didn't stop the unknowns from trying.
And tonight we have 4 unknown players, and they're all hoping to emerge from the shadows to bask in the glow of that $1.6 million poker spotlight.
Well, but for them to do that, they're going to have to get by our chip leader, WPT champion and local legend, Chris Karagulian.
But in seat number 1, one of the true superstars of poker, Chris Jesus Ferguson.
Well, they call him Jesus based on his look, but on the green felt, he's not the forgiving kind. If he senses weakness, he moves in for the kill.
Who's it going to be? Taking home big bucks? We will see. Let's go watch him gamble.
We started 5 days ago with 696 players. We are down to our final 6. This is the largest event on the WPT this season thus far. Tonight's winner will take home over $1.6 million.
Yes, they will. We are in LA, land of freeways, dreams, and plastic surgery. And let's talk about the structure. The antes will start out at $10,000, the blind 30 and 60. We're going to the table, action on bin-win. He quickly folds his hand, and now it's up to the great Chris Ferguson. They call him Jesus. He has a 9-10 of clubs.
And he's got the suited connectors. Chris Ferguson, a very aggressive player. A WPT title is what he craves. It's the only thing missing from his poker resume. He's going to raise it here. Makes it $160,000 to go.
But right behind him, Cornell Simpan with the ladies, a pair of queens. The poker professional out of Houston, Texas, with a big hand on hand number 1.
We're short stacked with 20 players left in this tournament. He's still here. See what he's going to do with the ladies.
He's going to play it slow, just calling.
Takes the conservative route.
Poker pro Pat Walsh out of St. Louis folding. WPT champ Chris Karagulian also out.
Young, tough Mike Sowers folds as well, so 2 players. Chris Ferguson, Cornell Simpan going at it. Here comes a flop. Jack, 8, deuce, all different suits. Chris Ferguson has flopped an open-end straight draw. Action is on him.
Just a nice flop there for Chris. Big possibilities. Will he make the continuation bet? No, he quickly checks it.
Wow, Cornell checks right behind him. I can't believe it, Vince.
Very surprising.
In case your opponent had an ace high, why would you give him a free card there where he could catch it to beat you? 6 of hearts comes off on the turn. Chris Ferguson checks. Well, this time Cornell's going to bet, but not a very big bet. $175,000 into a pot that's got $470,000 in it.
Finally trying to protect the overpair.
Chris Ferguson is going to make the call here with his open-end straight draw.
Yeah, he wants to draw out on the Houston professional. Will he get his card? Here's the river.
Well, a 10 comes off. This gives Chris Ferguson a pair of 10s. Might get him in trouble. He checks here. Cornell's going to reach for chips.
Yep, the 37-year-old betting again with the overpair, $225,000.
Well, it's not a big bet into a pot that's got over $800,000 in it. And Chris Ferguson is going to look him up, and he's going to be shocked when this guy turns up 2 queens and never took a raise in this pot.
Cornell Simpan takes it from the heavyweight at the table, Chris Ferguson.
So Cornell Simpan off to a good start here, takes down pot number 1.
LA Poker Classic just getting underway. We'll be right back on the World Poker Tour.
Winning a WPT title is the dream of every poker player.
Down to the river, here it comes.
It's huge. I'm gonna go back home and I'm gonna buy me a top-of-the-line Mercedes, and my license plate's gonna say WPT champ. I mean, it's it. This is it.
Why do you think Commerce gets so many players? Almost 700 players this tournament.
Well, the Commerce is really the poker capital of the world. People say, why do the players come here?
Right.
They're already here. They live in LA. If you're a professional poker player, LA is the logical place to live. Las Vegas, that is probably the gambling capital of the world.
Right.
But the poker capital of the world is right here at the Commerce.
Welcome back to the LA Poker Classic. Yeah, you could forget about the movie and TV industry. This is Pokerland. We are in LA, and we're off to a good start. And as you can see, Chris Karagulian, a WPT champion, is our chip leader. Chris Ferguson, they call him Jesus, is the short stack. Cards are being dealt once again. Blind 30 and 60,000, Pat Walsh. Pro out of St. Louis, quickly folding a 10-5.
Now WPT champ Chris Karagulian lays his hand down as well.
Mike Sowers out, but Ben Wynn, a 30-year-old, picking up a pair of nines.
Vince, incredibly, this is the first big buy-in tournament that Ben has ever played in his life. First WPT event. Here he is at the final table, going for $1.6 million.
Well, he's made it 160,000 to go. Ferguson out, but Cornell Simpan with a big ace-queen. Let's see how he plays it.
Well, he had two queens the last hand. He won the pot, but he didn't raise before the flop. Most guys in the big blind would come over the top of a guy raising on the button here, but he just limps in and calls again. So here comes the flop. Oh, and what a flop for Ben Wynn. He's flopped the top set. He's got 3 nines.
Cornell quickly checking. And Ben, who's a cash game specialist out of Vegas, this is just happy-go-lucky time for Ben Wynn. Flopping a set and betting 200,000. Nothing materializing for Cornell, but oh gosh, he's getting crazy. He's going over the top with nothing. He makes it 600,000.
It's 400 more to call.
Well, Cornell Simpan feeling his Wheaties from winning that first pot, I guess. Well, we know Ben's going to play this hand. He's never thrown this hand away. It's just a matter if you raise now or you just call here and hope your opponent bets at it again. You're never getting away from top set, folks.
I'm all in.
Well, he's not slow playing it. He's coming over the top right now for all the dough.
It's an awful feeling when you make a move, you think it might work, and then all of a sudden the guy comes back over the top, and you have absolutely nothing. You got the TV cameras going. Not really fun.
You might say Cornell didn't make an Ivy League move here, Vince.
How much you got left?
Who's he trying to fool here?
About nine, a little over $1 million.
Well, he just has ace high. The only way you could call is if you put your opponent on a spade draw or something where you felt you had the best hand, but he does lay it down. So Ben Wynn taking down that pot. It's a 30-year-old tough pro out of Las Vegas. Came to Los Angeles to play in his first ever WPT event, and here he is going for the $1.6 million first place prize. Incredible.
He was born in Vietnam, came to the States when he was 1 year old.
3.8.
And what an opportunity he has here going tonight. Action right back on him. Ben Wynn. And this time he's going to lay down his hand. Now Chris Ferguson.
Now he looks down at the Highway Patrol hand, a 10-4. He lays it down.
Into the pro from Houston. We've seen a lot of them. First couple of hands, Cornell Simpan. He's just got an 8 deuce, and he's going to raise with it.
Well, Vince, you just have to suspect he's raising to try to get some of his chips back. He lost in the last pot.
Pat Walsh folded, but Chris Karagulian with a king jack has made the call. Mike Sowers out.
Now Chris out of the small blind. Seen the guy play every pot so far, so he's going to gamble with the king jack with him. Flop comes ace, queen, 6. Chris with the straight draw, but he checks. And look at this. The continuation bet by Cornell here with just an 8 deuce offsuit, and that play is going to work. You know, there's more than one way to get your chips back, you know. You don't have to have a hand to get them back. Just fire.
Cornell playing looser than a cheerleader in a slasher film. And it pays off right there.
Oh, boy. Impressive play. Okay, action back on Ben Wynn. Folds a 9-8.
Now Chris Ferguson, who is on the short stack at this moment.
And Vince, I can honestly say that Chris Ferguson is the one player at this table that doesn't care about the money. He's made over $7.5 million in tournament winnings. Very rich guy. He just wants that WPT title. That's what he's playing for. Not going to worry about where he finishes if it's not first place.
Got an ace-8. He's raised to 165, but shockingly, right behind him, Cornell Simpan with just a 4-deuce is contemplating this.
Well, Vince, this guy's from Houston. I'll tell you, makes you wonder what those games in Houston are like. This guy plays every hand. Cole's a raise with a 4-deuce. Incredible.
Hey, Uncle Tilty at the table right now. Pat Walsh out. Karagulian not playing.
This 22-year-old Mike Sowers, he is one tough cookie, but doesn't play this hand either.
No, he's an online pro. Playing very tight so far. So we have 2 players. Here's the flop.
Now, flop comes 7-5-4. Chris Ferguson with a gut shot straight draw. 6 would give him a straight. But Cornell Simpan with the best hand right now with 2 4s. Actions on Chris Ferguson.
Chris with ace high.
Well, he's the short stack at the table. Got about 800,000 left. He's moving it in right here, Vince.
Yep, this could be the demise of Chris.
Count that.
Ooh. And Simpan says count it.
Well, Vince, the guy called a raise before the flop with a 4-deuce. He flopped a pair, so he could very well make this call from what we've seen so far.
Yep, he's a wild man.
You just have to put your opponent on 2 big cards here. It's not a pair if you're going to make this call with 2 4s and then hold your breath that your hand holds up. If you make this call, it would be a very gutsy call.
What a moment for this professional poker player out of Houston, Texas. But no! He's going to lay it down.
Well, he chuckles a little bit there. Yeah, I wouldn't be laughing at Chris Ferguson. It's like taking a stick and poking the bear with it, Vince. Be careful what you're doing here.
Well, right there, Jesus, Chris Ferguson walking on water. Stay with us. We're coming back with more action on the World Poker Tour.
Tonight's World Poker Tour brought to you by FullTiltPoker.net.
One of the things I've never won, one of the only things I've never won is a WPT championship. So I'm really looking forward to taking this one down. A lot of my poker friends have taken down these tournaments. I know Howard won 2. Eric Lindgren won 2. Yes! Gus Hansen probably won 3. So they got this over me, and I'm hoping to even the score a little bit today.
That is Chris Ferguson. Welcome back to the World Poker Tour. The LA Poker Classic continues. When you look at Chris's hair, it looks like he really hasn't had a haircut since the 80s.
Well, Vince, we heard him say he just wants to win this title. There's a big difference in prize money between first place and 6th. Guy goes out 6th, gets $240,000. The winner gets over $1.6 million. And I can assure you, folks, Chris Ferguson's not thinking about any of those other spots. He just wants a title.
All right, the blinds are going up to 40 and 80,000. Action on Cornell Simpan, quickly folding his hand. Now Pat Walsh out of St. Louis, poker professional with ace-9. He's going to bump it up.
He's going to raise it, makes it $260,000 to go.
Karagulian is out, and now Mike Sowers, online pro with the strange hat, goes away. Ben Wynn also out. And around to Chris Ferguson, who has picked up a wired pair of 7s. Chris Ferguson, who has more bracelets than a pawn shop. What a player.
He's still the short stack at this final table. Well, the middle pair, the toughest hand to play, and no limit hold'em. And here's the reason why. You got a guy that raised in front of you. What do you do with a middle pair here? Well, here goes Chris Ferguson again with the all-in bet.
Making a problem for Pat.
Vince, as we said, he's not worried about finishing 6th, 5th, 4th, anywhere but 1st. You see he's going for it right here. Now if you're sitting in Pat Walsh's seat, do you want to gamble with this hand?
I'll pass.
Probably not. Pat lays his hand down. So Chris Ferguson taking down that pot to take another step closer to his goal of capturing a WPT title.
Yeah, and if you're Pat Walsh, professional out of St. Louis, you just don't want to double up. The man they call Jesus, Chris Ferguson, who's playing impeccably here tonight so far. And here we go again, action right back on Chris.
Chris, a brilliant guy, went to UCLA, got a math degree, then got a PhD in computer science, now one of the top poker players in the world.
Well, he has folded.
Well, Cornell Simpan gonna lay down a king deuce of diamonds.
And now Pat Walsh with an ace-queen this time.
And he got burned the last hand by the ace-9. See what he's going to do with the ace-queen.
And look at Karagulian on his left, though, looking very interested about this hand.
And he's going to raise it. Ups the raise a little this time. 290,000 to go.
Next to act, WPT champion Chris Karagulian. And Chris, with an ace-jack, has made the call.
Well, Vance, he saw Chris Ferguson take the pot away from the guy last time by moving all in on him. Might think he's steaming a bit, doesn't have that strong a hand. Just raising to be raising, so he called him with the ace-jack to see a flop here.
Mike Sowers out, as is Ben Wynn. We have a flop.
Yeah, flop comes 10-10-4. So Pat Walsh still out in front with the ace-queen. And he is going to make a continuation bet here of 300,000.
Into a WPT champion who won in LA before, Karagulian, and he's going to stick around. This could get expensive.
He's a non-believer here, Vince. Just doesn't believe Pat Walsh has got that strong a hand. Now a 4 comes off. Now they're tied. Both players have 2 pair with an ace kicker. Action is on Pat. He's going to check.
Yep.
And look at this, Vince. Chris Karagulian is going to bet his ace high. 500,000.
What a good time to bet. You got to maybe put Karagulian on a 4. Maybe got lucky. Maybe a 10. This is a tough call to make.
Well, Vince, if he's got any pair, you're beat.
Yep.
Yeah, like 2 8s.
The guy called a raise before the flop. He called a bet on the flop when it comes 10-10-4. I can see where you'd think an ace-queen would shrink up here.
Okay.
There you go. Chris Karagulian, our chip leader, takes down a nice pot.
He wants to be a 2-time WPT champion. He wants to be the king of LA poker. After that hand, nicely played, he's on his way. Now here are the colors of Armenia.
Well, Vince, it's like a World Cup soccer game here when they sing that song.
We love Chris Karagulian here at the Commerce Casino.
Yeah, he's certainly the local favorite here tonight, no doubt about it. Has a big rooting section. They want him to see him capture that second WPT title.
All right, action going to the online pro, Mike Sowers. Can't pick up much of a hand, folds his 8-3.
Over to Ben Wynn. This is the pro out of Vegas, playing in his first ever WPT event. Picks up a king-queen. That's good enough to raise it. He makes it 200,000 to go.
But behind them, Ferguson picking up a real hand, pair of jacks. Quality high pair.
Chris Ferguson, not the kind of guy that calls with a lot of pairs. He likes to come over the top with them. See what he's going to do with the jacks.
Great mathematician, went to UCLA. Doubt he wore that hat there at that campus, though. And he is going to make it 600,000 to go.
Well, he does come over the top.
Cornell Simpan going away.
Over to Pat Walsh. Got an 8-7. He lays his hand down. Chris out as well. Now, if you're sitting in Ben Wynn's seat, you're not crazy about a king-queen when somebody comes over the top of you, I can assure you. You're always fearful that they have ace-king or ace-queen, would have you dominated. So Ben's going to get out of the way.
And just like that, Chris Ferguson has put the fear of Jesus to the whole table. Taking down another pot. Stay with this. 6 players remain here on the World Poker Tour.
Find out how to become the next WPT champion
at worldpokertour.com.
To be 22 and have the chance to win $1.6 million is the most exciting thing I could ever imagine. I don't think that I would ever see myself sitting there with Chris Ferguson at a WPT final table with a chance to win so much money at such a young age. $1.6 million is a dream come true to anyone.
That is young 22-year-old Mike Sowers, who looks like he pencils in his beard. But what a player he is. He's going after the big bucks here tonight at the LA Poker Classic.
Yeah, Vance, and his idol is the defending champion of this event, Phil Ivey, who won this last year. And I can tell you, this young kid's got a lot of heart, just like Phil Ivey does.
All right, action going down to Ben Wynn. Out of Vegas, quickly folding his hand. Jesus Ferguson. Not going to play a 10-5.
Okay, around the Cornell Simpan, he looks down at a pair of 9s. Reaching for some raising chips. Going to make it 200,000 to go.
To the St. Louis pro, Pat Walsh. who studied business and criminal justice at Missouri State. Not getting lucky so far tonight. He folds his hand. Karagulian also out.
Mike Sowers, the 22-year-old. He's going to make the call.
How much you got, Mike? I started the hand with 2.2. 2.2.
Out of the big blind. Cost him another $120,000 to call. He's got the ace-7 of hearts. And it comes ace, king, queen. Mike checks the top pair. Cornell not happy to see the 3 overcards. Checks the 2 nines right behind him.
Yep.
Now a king comes off. Well, again, Mike Sowers checks, and again, Cornell checks right behind him.
Yeah, not falling into any traps here. 3 of spades on the river.
Well, if you're the youngster now, you got to think your aces up are good here. And I'm sure Mike thinks exactly that. That's why he's getting out some chips to bet. Going to make a $325,000 wager. Now what do you do with 2 nines? Well, you call, I guess, if you're Cornell Simpan, but he's not going to like it. So the youngest guy at the table, 22-year-old Mike Sowers from Charlotte, North Carolina, taking down that pot. Vince, I can tell you, I played at a final table of the World Series of Poker with this kid. It was a $10,000 pot limit Hold'em tournament. He tried to bluff me out, Vince. He came over the top of me with a 9-3 offsuit, happened to have 2 queens. I busted him out of the tournament.
That's it, Mike.
Well, he's got heart, though. I liked him. He's a likable kid. Young online whiz kid. Action's back on him here.
Damn, he's got a 9-8, and you know, you look at his hat, it almost looks like he should have a propeller on the top of that.
Oh, Vince, I agree. What a horrible hat that is.
Well, he has raised it to 200,000. Ben Wynn out. Chris Ferguson out. And it's around to Cornell, who's got a pair of 7s.
And he got burned with the 2 nines the last hand against this same player. Let's see what he's going to do with the 2 7s. Mike Sowers has raised it coming in. But he's going to make the call here.
Pat Walsh also in so far. He's got a jack 10.
Well, Vince, there's $540,000 in the pot. Going to cost him another $120 to make this call. Be surprised if he doesn't make it here with all that money that's out there.
33-year-old, first time at a final table on the World Poker Tour.
Well, so far nothing's gone right for him at this final table, so he's going to sit this one out. So we got the same 2 guys going at it again. Mike Sowers and Cornell Simpan.
Yep, 7s up against 9, 8 of clubs. Here's the flop.
Well, king 3 deuce. No help to either player. Cornell checks his 2 7s. And the 22-year-old with heart looks like he's going to make the continuation bet with just 9 high. Yes, he is. $325,000. Now what do you do with 2 7s?
He's not going anywhere.
Well, he's made the call here.
Solid call by Cornell.
Well, thinks they might be the best hand. Indeed, they are. See what happens from here. Here comes the turn card. Well, a queen comes off. Again, Cornell checks. Will the youngster fire again? Remember, he only has 9 high. But he's going to check this time.
Yep, going down to the river.
Now the board pairs kings. Well, Cornell checks the 2 7s. I'm sure Mike Sowers realized the only way he can win this pot is to bet at it. So he is going to fire. Vince, I think once the board pairs kings, you know your opponent doesn't have a king, because he would have bet on 4th Street had he had a pair of kings. So you don't figure this card's going to help him.
Well, this is how you ran him down in that tournament, Mike.
Still a tough call to make with 2 7s here, though.
It is. The kid makes some plays. He makes some moves. Is it going to work? No.
Cornell is going to make the call.
I got 9 high.
He's going to win this pot with the 2 7s, giving himself a clap, and deservedly so, Vince. That was a nice call.
Well, the 22-year-old, very bold. Gets his hand caught in the cookie jar right there.
Nice, Sam. Good call. Thanks.
But he remains a gentleman. 6 players remain at the LA Poker Classic. We're coming right back.
Win a WPT event the first time out would be amazing. I know this opportunity doesn't come too often. I mean, there's so many great players out there who've never won. So I know I'm in a very, very lucky position. I'm not going to take it for granted.
In seat 6, Ben Wynn.
Well, Welcome back to the World Poker Tour. The LA Poker Classic continues. 6 players. And our chip leader right now is Chris Karagulian, a WPT champion. He has close to $3.6 million in chips.
And Ben Wynn saying he knows how tough it is to win these things. How could he know, Vince? This is the first time he's ever played. Here he is at the final table. He's making it look easy.
He's getting a taste of it tonight. Let's go to the table. Action going to Cornell Simpan. He's got a king 10 of spades. He is an action-oriented player, and he's going to raise.
And he makes it $200,000 to go.
Pat out. Chris Karagulian also out, as is Mike Sowers.
So we're around to Ben Wynn. He looks down at a queen-jack offsuit. He's got $40,000 in the small blind. He's going to call another $160,000. And Chris Ferguson lays down the 10-6 of clubs.
So a king 10 versus queen jack. The first 3 are coming up.
Oh, it's come queen jack 8. Ben Wynn has flopped the top 2 pair and checks.
Yeah, trying to trap, but both check.
Now Cornell with the open-end straight draw checks it, and now makes a straight on the turn as a 9 comes off. Now there are 3 hearts out there. Action is on Ben Wynn.
He's going to find out where he is. He's bet $250,000.
He's got the top 2 pair, but he is in dire trouble right now.
And just getting a call by Cornell.
Can't believe that Cornell would not come over the top of him with a straight here with 3 hearts out there. Now the 4th heart comes out. Neither player has a heart, so neither player going to be excited to see that card. Now Ben Wynn is first to act. He's got the top 2 pair. There's a 4-card flush and a 4-card straight on the board, but he's going to make one of those defensive style bets. There's over $1 million in the pot, and yet he's betting $350,000.
Very daring $350,000 bet with no straight, no heart.
Cornell got to be disgusted with himself for not coming back over the top.
Yeah.
On the turn right now. Might be afraid his opponent has made a flush here.
Got to come back over the top on the turn when you hit the high straight there.
Well, especially when there's 3 hearts on the board.
Oh, yeah. It's a big mistake, and he's going to pay for it.
But what about that bet by Ben Wynn? You got to love that size bet, about a third of what was in the pot. And it paid off in spades for him because his 2 pair took down the pot, even though his opponent had a straight.
And he is smiling right now. And this is a guy that plays in the biggest cash games in Vegas, on his way to a $1.6 million first place prize, perhaps.
Well, he's a very smart guy. He's got an MBA, was a former engineer, now poker pro.
Okay, to the table. This hand we go.
Well, Pat and Chris Karagulian fold.
Look at this. The online kid picking up a pair of kings.
Big hand for Mike Sowers right here. The 22-year-old has 2 cowboys, so he's going to bet $200,000.
Ben Wynn going to take a breather. Mucks his hand.
And around to Chris Ferguson. Chris in a small blind here. Well, he looks down at the queen jack of diamonds.
Yep, an enticing hand here.
And that's the kind of hand you like to see flops with. And he's in big trouble as his opponent has an overpair. Well, Chris Ferguson's going to make the call, wants to see a flop. See what Cornell does in the big blind here. Well, he looks down at a 6-deuce offsuit. Not even he can play that one.
So we got the young online poker pro Mike Sowers up against World Series champion Chris Ferguson in a big one. And look at this. Chris has picked up a pair of jacks.
This hand could spell big trouble with a capital T for Chris Ferguson. He's flopped top pair here. It's come jack 8 deuce. He's going to check the 2 jacks. See what the 22-year-old is going to do with his kings. Well, he's going to bet. Looks like $250,000.
Yep. He'll try to protect the overpair. Not that big of a bet, though.
He's trying to reel him in here. And Vince, it could well work. Chris Ferguson may try the check raise here after flopping top pair. If so, it can be big trouble for him. Well, he is. He is going to raise it here, and quickly Mike Sowers goes all in. Not for much more, just about another 100 or 200,000 more. So Chris obligated to call.
Jesus, in a lot of trouble right now. Pair of jacks up against kings.
Yeah, Mike Sowers' friends hollering for a king to get this thing over with.
Good luck, Chris.
Chris Ferguson in a lot of trouble. His dream of becoming a WPT champion slipping away.
Well, he's looking for a queen or a jack to take the lead right now. To catch a running 9-10 to make it straight. Oh, king comes right off. That's going to do it.
This hand is over, folks. Mike Sowers all smiles as he's going to double up here.
Down, but not out.
Nearly $3 million in this pot.
Jesus always comes back.
All right, well, will Jesus rise again? We will see. Stay tuned. We're coming back with more action on the World Poker Tour.
The equipment in the game in poker is very important to poker players. It's like athletes. Tennis players want the best rackets. Baseball players want the nicest bat. Well, poker players are just like these athletes. They want to play on the nicest equipment. You know, they would like a nice poker table. You like real quality poker chips, and obviously you want high quality playing cards. That keeps everybody happy. When you sit down to start a poker game and they spread the brand new decks on the table, it's sort of like going to a party on New Year's Eve where you just feel good, you pop the champagne, you're excited to get going, you know, and have a nice night. And my recommendation is, as the game goes on, continue to change decks, bring fresh decks in all the time, and keep those decks coming.
I'll be wearing my sunglasses at the final table today. I generally don't wear them except at final tables. I don't think it makes me any, I don't feel any more intimidating than a lot, but if people think so, that's fine with me.
Welcome back to the World Poker Tour. The LA Poker Classic continues, and Chris Ferguson with under $1 million right now. Our chip leader is a WPT champion, Chris Karagulian, who's going after his second WPT title.
Well, Vince, just for the record, I don't think any player should be allowed to wear sunglasses at a final table, but that's just me. But I'm not sure that makes Chris Ferguson any more intimidating. It's the fact that he moves all in on these guys. That's what intimidates him.
All right, to the felt we go. Karagulian quickly folding. The online pro Mike Sowers also going out.
That's around to Ben Wynn. He looks down at a pair of sixes, Route 66. Going to make it 200,000 to go. Oh, and Chris Ferguson has ace-king. He's got big slick. He's got less than $1 million in chips. It's 200,000 to call. Be very surprised if he doesn't ship it here.
And look at Ben Wynn. Ferguson he's saying, does this guy have a real hand? We know Ben Wynn's hand isn't that bad.
Yeah.
It's a mid-pair, but Chris is going all in over the top.
Yeah, let's see what the blinds are going to do. Now, Cornell has 8-9 of spades, but hard to call $1 million all-in bet with that hand.
Pat Walsh laughs about his hand as he mucks it.
780 more from him.
It'll get more expensive if Ben Wynn wants to stick around with his mid-pair.
Well, it's going to cost him another $780 to make the call. There's about $1.4 million in the pot. But Vince, he's got the chips to be able to make this call. Even if he calls and loses this pot, he's going to have over $2 million in chips. I think with an opportunity to knock out a Chris Ferguson and take command with 5 players left, I think it's worth the risk here to make this call with the 2 sixes.
You would think so. But he's not going to do it. He has mucked the hand. So Chris Ferguson taking this pot.
Wow, I'm surprised by that fold by Ben Wynn there, but a nice all-in bet by Chris Ferguson. Well, you don't want to double up a tough player like Chris Ferguson, but sometimes you just have to gamble, Vince. You're getting almost 2-to-1 odds on your money there. He has to have an overpair to have you beat, and in case you win that pot, the toughest guy at the table is gone, and you're a big chip leader with 5 left.
And maybe it's the Chris Ferguson name that's just making these guys lay down hands to him. They just don't want to get involved with them.
Well, I think you should gamble.
The next hand we go, Chris folding. And now Cornell Simpan, the pro from Houston, Texas. Very volatile professional. He is going to raise with an ace-jack, making it 175,000 to go. Pat Walsh, though, on the short stack, says all in with an ace-queen.
Just looking for any kind of hand to get it in there with. He has found it with an ace-queen.
Karagulian is folded, as did Mike Sowers. Ben Wynn not going to play.
There, he wants you to take in the 175.
Well, it's going to cost Cornell around 600,000 more to make this call. He's just going to have to hope his opponent's got a pair of 9s or a pair of 10s where he might have 2 overcards and be in a race. He's going to make the call. I don't blame him for making it, but he's not going to like it.
as he's dominated, and he knows it. His opponent has ace-queen. He has ace-jack. So a great opportunity for Pat Walsh to double up here.
So Pat Walsh, who nothing has materialized so far this evening for him, finally has to go all in. He is out pipping Cornell. Let's see if his hand will hold up.
Yeah, it's come king 6-3 with 2 hearts. Pat Walsh well out in front. He's also got the ace of hearts as a backup here. The 33-year-old pro out of St. Louis in great shape to double up here. Well, now an ace comes off. That means the only way that Cornell can win this pot is he must catch a jack on the river. They would split the pot if a 3 or 6 comes off.
I can catch a 3 or a 6 with
Pat
you.
Walsh studied business and criminal justice at Missouri State. He'd like some justice here, and he gets it.
So there you go. Pat Walsh is going to double up. We still have 6 players left.
Rakes in his first pot of the evening. Pat Walsh taking down that pot. Winner going to take home over $1.6 million in Los Angeles. Stay tuned. We're coming back with more action in just a moment. Tonight's broadcast sponsored in part by Southwest Airlines. Low fares, no hidden fees. Welcome back to the World Poker Tour, where 6 players remain going after that over $1.6 million here tonight.
And our current chip leader is WPT champ Chris Karagulian, going for his 2nd title tonight. He's got a little over $3.5 million. Chris Ferguson on the short stack, but still has over $1.3 million. So, Vince, it's anybody's game from here.
Okay, to the money pit we go. We go to the Houston Bandit, Cornell Simpan. Looks at a jack 6. He goes away.
Pat Walsh peeks down at an ace-3 offsuit, lays it down.
The WPT champion, Chris Karagulian, with ace-8 of hearts, is going to raise. Makes it $225,000 to go.
And Mike Sowers going out. Ben Wynn out as well.
Round to Chris Ferguson.
He's got a pair of 9s.
And he's got a real hand here.
As we've seen, when Chris Ferguson gets a pair, he doesn't call in these spots. Nearly always comes over the top. Let's see what he does here. Up against a WPT champ and a really solid player, but doesn't stop Chris Ferguson from playing his game. He's moved all in.
Yep, he is going to ship it, and Karagulian wants to know how much is it going to cost me.
It's going to cost him about $1 million more, Vince.
So if I lose, how much will I have?
It's a negative way of thinking about it, but now there's Chris Ferguson's dad. If you're Jesus' dad, do you call him God, I wonder?
Oh, boy.
I don't want to double you up.
Well, ace-8 is not exactly the kind of hand you want to put another $1 million with and gamble with a Chris Ferguson. Be surprised if he calls, and he does lay his hand down. So Chris Ferguson over the top again, all in to take down the pot.
Yeah, playing power poker right there. Karagulian content.
Good lay down, brother. Good lay down.
And right there, that's Chris Karagulian's life coach, I believe. Crazy fan, they call him.
He's gonna do that. He's so relaxed. I don't want to double him up. What do you want me to double him up? And now he can't. He come and kill us.
They don't want to double up the great Chris Ferguson. He's too dangerous of a player, and that's what Karagulian says right there. Blinds are going up to 50 and 100,000. Quick fold by Pat Walsh.
Over to Karagulian. He lays his hand down.
The online kid, Mike Sowers, also going out.
Ben Wynn out, so it's the battle of the blinds. Down to Chris Ferguson. He picks up a nice hand here. Ace-king of clubs.
Starting to get a little rush there for Chris Ferguson.
And he's going to raise it. It's going to make it $300,000 to go. The blinds just went up to 50 and 100,000, so.
And the Houston Bandit picks up a pair of 4s. 44, midlife crises.
Well, he's got the cold 44s, Vince. That's because he's looking to shoot down Chris Ferguson here. Now, do you want to just call and see this flop, or you want to come over the top with the pair? He's going to make the call. So both players with a legitimate hand here. Chris Ferguson with the ace-king of clubs. Cornell with the 2 4s. Here's the flop. Now let's come 10-8-8. Action on Chris Ferguson. Now Chris is going to check.
I'm all in.
And quickly, Cornell goes all in. A nice all-in bet by him.
Wow, he is putting the pressure on Ferguson here. Boldly bet by Cornell Simpan. And do you want to call off your money here?
Well, this is the problem
when you don't move all in yourself, you're faced with a tough decision as to what to do. You got to hope the guy's bluffing, and your ace-king might be good. But I believe if you're going to check and call here, you should have moved in to start with. But Chris Ferguson has done just that. He has checked and called all his money off.
You got a pair? No. I know you don't have a pair.
So Cornell out in front with the 2-pair right now. Chris Ferguson going to have to get lucky to win this pot to stay alive in this tournament. And what a pot it is.
Yep.
Over $3.3 million in this pot.
What an opportunity for Cornell Simpan to make a name for himself, to knock out Chris Ferguson in this event. The turn card, 6 of clubs, not helping Ferguson.
Well, it's going to help him if another 6 comes off. He'd win the pot with 8s and 6s and an ace kicker. He needs an ace, a king, a 10, or a 6. Otherwise, Chris Ferguson will be our 6th place finisher.
Cornell Simpan, will he be the Dragon Slayer tonight?
No, the 3 of clubs comes off. Cornell Simpan, very excited to knock Chris Ferguson out of this tournament and take the chip lead here.
Chris Ferguson out in 6th place, going to pick up $240,000, but it's got to be disappointing for him.
His dream to win a WPT title is going to have to come on another day. Well, the crowd loves this guy. How can you not love him?
Ace-king is a big hand. Normally I'd call. You have to call with that hand. That's the normal thing to do. And I'm not getting. I think I'm behind. I'm not getting bad odds on my call anyway. That's why I called, hoping to get lucky basically. The game is very slow. People are picking their spots. They're really avoiding trouble a lot, and so I think that's why we haven't seen a player go out until me.
A great gentleman and ambassador of the game. Chris Ferguson out in 6th place, and we are down to 5 players at the Commerce Casino. Stay tuned, we're coming back.
Tonight's World Poker Tour brought to you by FullTiltPoker.net.
Welcome back to the World Poker Tour. The LA Poker Classic continues, but we are down to 5 players.
They're going for a $1.6 million first place prize. We just lost the great Chris Ferguson. Right now, our current chip leader, Cornell Simpan.
Yeah, he is the Houston Bandit. Very deceptive here this evening so far. Let's go back down to the money pit.
Action on Cornell. Looks at a queen 3 offsuit and folds.
And now Pat Walsh has picked up a pair of 10s.
I'm all in.
Nice hand. He's moving all in with the 2 10s.
Yep. So Chris Karagoulian now with ace-3 mucks his hand.
How much is it? It's about.
And now the online kid, Mike Sowers, says, how much you got there? How much is it?
I'm all in.
And Mike Sowers going all in here with an ace-jack.
Yeah, he's gone over the top, bid win out. So we do have a showdown.
Wow, what a call here by Mike Sowers with just an ace-jack.
Let's go. Come on, one time.
He's got the 2 overcards, so we've got a race situation, but a huge pot here. Nearly $3 million in this pot.
Pat Walsh.
He needs to win the race to stay alive. Let's see if he can do it. Oh, it's come 10-8-5. He has flopped the top set, Rin 10-10, 30 miles. And the only way Mike Sowers can win this pot is he had 2 running cards to make it straight. He knows it. He's counting out the chips that he's going to lose here.
How do they do it, Mike?
6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6.
Does luck continue? It looks great there.
And the deuce comes off. Well, he pumps his fist. He knows there's no card Mike can catch to win the pot. He is going to double up here, and the 22-year-old taking a big hit there.
Well, all 5 of these guys have plenty of chips, but only one of them will be taking home a WPT title and a $1.6 million first place prize. Who's it going to be?
Please join us next time for the exciting conclusion of the LA Poker Classic right here on the World Poker Tour. It's anybody's guess as to who's going to take the crown tonight.
Yeah!
Nice hand.
Absolute devastation.
Picking up me today, huh? I'm not picking on you. It's not personal.
So show us the money. It's over $2.5 million they're putting on the table right now.
Come on. All in. All in?
I got a call.
Sweet.
I don't understand what this is for here.